Hey everybody, I'm Nate Edwards with BYU Photo, and today we're going to talk about remote cameras, what it is, why we use it, and how to set it up. So why use a remote camera? Number one, visual variety and multiple angles. Number two, you can put the camera where you physically cannot be. And number three, as a backup. Now as a backup, you can use it because you either missed the shot, it's out of focus, or you have a ref or another player that came right in front of your lens as the play's happening. Now, there are downsides to using remote cameras. Number one, you've got to invest the time to go early and get it set up. Number two, you need permission. Permission to put it up and then permission of where you can put it up. And then number three, remote cameras don't always work the way that you want them to or hope that they do. You may not get the shot that you're wanting because it never happened, or something happened with your remote, like your trigger didn't fire, or the battery in your camera went dead, or somehow it went out of focus. So just know there's going to be some struggles as you're working with remotes, and it's not 100% all the time. So here's some examples of photos I've taken during basketball games with remote cameras. The nice thing is it gives that visual variety. It helps drive the narrative, drives the story. And the nice thing is you can get multiple angles of the same play. And remote cameras go far beyond just basketball. You can use them in many different settings. So we're going to set up some remotes later in this video, but let me walk through the equipment that we're going to use. You're going to have pocket wizards. You need at least two, one that transmits and one that receives. Beyond that, you're going to need the cable that connects to your camera from the pocket wizard. You may need an extension cable, depending on how you use it. I have this nice little floor tripod you set a camera on. You're going to need safety cables. Obviously, you'll need a camera or two. These super clamps, those are really nice. You're going to need those, super strong. They will attach to your magic arm. So this magic arm is made by Manfrotto. You move it to where you need to, you tighten it up, and then it doesn't move. You're going to need a magic arm with the super clamp and then one of the ends to hook your camera to. Here's a different version of one of those arms and a different mount for your camera. I also like, for my pocket wizard, this little clamp made by Manfrotto that I'll clamp on one of the pads or clamp on something. It has a cold shoe that you can put the pocket wizard right in it. Screw it down. And then finally, you're going to need some gaff tape and some tinfoil. Let's briefly go over how to set up your pocket wizard with your camera. I have two of them. This one I have set to RX only, which is receive only. This one I have set to TX only, which is transmit only. This is the one I'll put on the camera that I'll be hand holding, and this is the one that I'll put on my remote camera. So I'll just slide it right into the hot shoe, tighten it down, get my cable, plug it in the front of the pocket wizard right here. I'll take this end and plug right into my camera. Simple as that. Now every time I hit the test button here, it'll fire the remote camera. Or when I put this on the hot shoe of my other camera, every time I take a picture holding the shutter button down, it'll take a picture with this camera. If you need a really cheap floor stand for your camera that you're using as a remote, go check out our basketball video and I'll show you a cool hack that I learned just using 2 AA batteries. Just a quick note on safety. When you're setting up a remote camera, safety is everything. If you're putting a camera up high somewhere, you want to make sure that you're using safety cables. I like to be redundant with my safety. Also use tape to tape anything down that could potentially fall off, become loose, come unplugged, or be unscrewed. This is like your UV filter, anything that you plug in, even taping the safety cables onto your magic arms, anything like that. Just make sure that you're being super, super safe and being extra cautious. So So one of the easiest ways you can use a remote is I just like to keep one by my feet, especially if I'm traveling on the road or different places and I can't set up a remote. A couple of reasons why this is nice is one, I can shoot tighter with my handheld, and then I always have a wider shot here. So you can shoot with your 70 to 200. Sometimes I'll shoot with my 1 to 300, and that just gives you the variety of having a wide shot and a tight shot. So with this flow remote, I'm going to be using a 15 to 35 or 16 to 35. When I'm closer underneath the basket, I'm going to shoot wider, more towards 16 millimeter. If I'm further away, more towards the end of the court, I'll probably be shooting around 20 to 24 millimeter, just depending on where I am along the baseline. You want to make sure that you keep this camera within the photographer's box. Do not put it out. Again, it's the safety of the athletes. You want to make sure that this is in the box and out of the way of anybody tripping on it. And then there's a spider. So my settings in this position typically is f4 at 800th of a second. And then my ISO is just wherever it needs to fall based off of the arena that I'm in. All right, so usually I'll just focus on the net, and then I'll frame it about in the third, so the hoop is about in the third. Sometimes I'll move it a little bit more towards center, but for the most part, I'll just keep it right there in the third. This is about 20 millimeter. Right there, we're at 16, and you can go in. This is about 24 millimeter right here. So you can see the difference. This guy. If your seat assignment is further out, away from the hoop, I'll be a little bit tighter, shoot about 20 to 24 millimeter on the outside. And I'm going to keep it over in the right third, or the left third if I'm on the other side. If you're lucky enough that your arena has a cutout on the pad, it's a great place to tuck in a remote. For here, it's a really great center shot. It's symmetrical, right under the hoop. I'm going to be shooting between 15 to 20 millimeter under here. Now, pre-focusing, a lot of times, I'll just like to step back and I'll go back behind the pad about a couple feet. I'll focus on the net. That way, when the camera gets pushed back forward, it focuses just a little bit beyond the net. So I'll pre-focus. And then when I slide it under, you can put it on manual focus so it doesn't get bumped. So make sure that you stick this camera all the way under. It cannot be sticking out at all. Again, it's the safety of the athletes. It's got to be tucked in. You can make sure that it's straight. I'll just come out, make sure that you're aligned, and you're good to go. You can just plug in your Pocket Wizard and tuck it back in. I like to have an extension for my Pocket Wizard remote, and then I clamp it up on the side just to minimize interference. So with that, I'll take my normal Pocket Wizard cable, and then I'll plug it into the extension, tuck it under, and then you'll take this end, plug it into your Pocket Wizard. And we have these nice little Manfrotto cold shoe clamps. A lot of times I will just bring it right back here, clamp it on the pad, stick the Pocket Wizard on, and then I'll tuck this cable in. So you don't want any of this cable sticking out, showing. I'll just run it up along the pad right here, stick the excess back here. Actually, usually I'll come from behind, stick it through the hole, wrap it through here. That way it keeps it out of the way. And then you always want to make sure that your Pocket Wizard's turned on. So here's a little idea that I tried this year that I really like. But this one requires some kind of floor stand, or here's a mini tripod from Manfrotto we like to use. I'll just put it on the Canon R5, screw it in underneath. So with this remote, I'll be shooting offense, but from the opposite side of the court, going towards our student section. I want to see the environment and the excitement of the arena, and this remote has helped me capture that. I'm still going to use the cutout right down here. To get this set up, I'm just going to set it down here. I'm going to make sure my camera's level, and I'm probably going to be shooting about 50 millimeter across the court. And I'm going to just focus on the backboard. And once I get everything centered, I'm going to use that same cable with the extension. I'm going to plug it in. So I'm using the Canon R5 body on this. One, because it's a lower profile of a body. It's not like your pro body like the R3 or 1DX. That way it fits under on this little tripod. You just slide it back in. Make sure it's facing straight, and it just sits right back there. Again, make sure that it's all the way tucked back in. If you want to make sure that you are centered, a lot of times I'll just walk back behind the hoop and look in. And if my screen's on, I can see, I can just look down in there, make sure I'm centered. So the battery on the R5 lasts probably just half the game, so you want to make sure to switch that out at halftime. For this particular remote, I only use for the first half. I only use it facing towards the student section, and then I'll come back over, switch my cable out, and put my other floor remote under to get the wide shot of the basket closest to me. So again, when you put this in, make sure you're centered, tuck your cable in, and then you're good to go. So that's another fun remote that you can use. So here's another great spot for a remote, and you'll tuck it right up in here. Now when you start putting remotes on the backboard or on the hoop anywhere, you've got to make sure to coordinate with TV, because sometimes they will put their cameras in specific spots and you need to make sure that you're coordinating with them. Now typically when you're setting up a remote, you want the clamp and the weight of the camera pulling down, not going up. This is one of those rare occasions that your camera will be up top and the arm will be going up. That's why it's also vital that you have this other magic arm for support and safety. Super clamp on one end. I'm just going to keep this thing straight, tighten it down. We're good to go. This super clamp, I'm just going to stick it in through the backside here. And this is going to reach all the way up through the top. And then you'll super clamp right onto this spot right here. And I like to put a piece of tape wherever I'm clamping just to protect all the metal. So this magic arm and super clamp, you always have an extra one on there for stabilization and for safety. So this one I'm going to clamp onto something solid on the hoop, and then the other one I'm going to clamp onto the other super clamp just to give it that extra stability. Now right now it's all loose and it moves around. Once you tighten this down, like, it's firm, it's not moving anywhere. So that's how you use them. So feed this in. I'm going to clamp this guy right up here. Going to grab the other end. And I want to go up high. Clamp it right onto that other magic arm. And then you want to tighten it down, and then that way it's firm. It's not going anywhere. Okay, then you just take your mount, put it on the back of the camera. Make sure that you get this tight. You want to make sure that it's facing straight out. So to attach the camera, it's a lot easier if you have a ladder. Before you put it up, you want to feed through your safety cable. I have these Peak Design strap things on here that I'll use to feed it through, or you can get just a key ring and wrap around there for safety. Just feed the safety cable through. And then you'll want to put your remote plug in. And then tighten it down. I'll wrap my safety cable just around the hoop right here to shorten it. I'll wrap it around twice. Pocket wizard, make sure it's on. I'll just clamp it right here. I'll reach back, grab my remote cable. This one's a little bit longer. So the nice thing is you don't need an extension. It reaches through. I'll put it through the strap as an extra safety. Plug it right in and you're good to go. Now it works better if you have a ladder or a step stool, but if by chance you don't, you can still reach up there without one. Always walk on the metal, never walk on the pads. Okay, so finally the last remote spot we're going to talk about is behind the glass, behind the hoop. This is probably one of the harder remotes to set up out of all of them. Takes the most planning. You got to get there way early. You got to wait till people leave to take it down. There's just a lot more that goes into it. You also need to make sure to get permission to put it there from either the team, or if you're traveling, whoever you need to get permission from. Equipment wise, what you need, so we need 2 magic arms. And with these, the super clamps, I like to use the black ones. You want to really minimize any kind of distraction behind the backboard. So anything that's not black, you want to make black best you can. You also want the mount that you can put your camera on. The other one, again, you get another magic arm of super clamps. This one's for safety and stability. You're going to have a couple safety cables, gaff tape, and then cinfoil. And the cinfoil is what you'll use to kind of minimize any kind of reflection that you're getting underneath off the glass. And then, of course, your camera. And on here we put a metal ring just so you can have it for extra safety that your safety cable will go through. Okay. So again, any place that you're gonna clamp, I would recommend putting gaff tape around it so you don't scar up the metal. So for this one, for the camera, I'm going to place near the glass here. Now the reality is not all of hoops are the same, so I'm just teaching general principles and showing you how to do it on this one, so hopefully you can apply it to other ones that you may be working on. So you want to do these super clamps pretty snug, but you don't, I mean, they're pretty strong, so you don't want to do it so tight that it squishes the pipe. But you want to do it fairly tight. Go grab my camera. Make sure it's locked in good, tight. So your camera is going to be upside down for this shot. Make sure, it's going to be easier if you do all of your settings on your camera first, so you're not doing it upside down. Makes it a little harder. Whoop. So once it's clamped up here, there's no safety cable yet, so you just want to make sure to be careful, keep a hand on it, and then I'm going to, I'll be out at about 15 millimeter right now. And you just want to try to position it where you want it. and then go ahead and tighten it down. You do not want to keep the lens against the glass. You want to give yourself, I don't know, I'm about 2 fingers widths away from the glass right now. Now the reason why, if they dunk the ball, this is going to move, right? That's normal, and you don't want your camera lens smacking the glass. You want to give yourself enough buffer that you keep it away. Okay, so now I'm going to put up my support arm, and I'm just going to get spacing right so I know about where I need to tape it. You want to use the clamp as close to the camera as you can. So you want to be close down here. And then pull-wise, I'll probably be about right there. So then I'll just tape it. Make sure it's pretty snug. Bring this end over, clamp it on here pretty good. I'm gonna tighten this down pretty snug. Make sure both of them are good. Double check, make sure your clamps are nice and tight. And now you're pretty solid. All right, now I'm gonna put the Pocket Wizard on, get my sync cable. You wanna make sure it'll reach wherever you put it. So I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to wrap the loop around there, and I'm actually going to gaff tape the Pocket Wizard on up here. So make sure that that's nice and secure. Okay, now we're going to put on the safety cables. I actually took 2 of these safety cables and hooked them together because I want to make sure that the camera is connected to the actual hoop and not just the magic arms. So in case something fails, it's not going to put the weight on the magic arms, it's going to put the weight on the actual hoop and backboard. So I'll feed it through the loop that we have. Feed both sides up and over. I'm actually going to wrap it around that handle a couple times just to tighten the slack. I'll loop this around. Make sure that your cable's pretty tight. And then clamp it on. So now your camera's secure. I'm going to use one more safety cable and go around this magic arm. This one, it's wrapped around and it'll be taped on. I just want to make sure I have extra safety on this one here. We'll wrap around there. Once all your safety cables are on, you want to tape it down. So just as an extra precaution, the last thing that you want is this camera or anything up here falling down and causing any kind of problems, landing on an athlete or a ref or whatever it is, or even after the game, right? If it gets crazy and people start shaking the backboard, you want to make sure that everything is safe up here. So this tape, I'm just going to tape the safety cables up and around. Part of it is for safety. The other part of it is to, again, eliminate any of that distraction. So anything silver, I'll put tape on all of the silver parts that are on here. So looking through the glass from this way, they won't be able to see anything but black. That way, you're just minimizing, again, any distraction that the camera may cause already. Okay, so now I have everything clamped and safety cabled. So just to go over it again, I have this super clamp and magic arm up on top, camera hooked to it. I have this clamp over here, the magic arm going, clamping on to the camera here. I have safety cables going from the camera around the pipe, safety cables also on this magic arm. I have them taped on, wrapped around, so if anything happens, it'll be caught. So I want kind of double redundancy on everything that I do just to be safe, right? Some may think it's overkill. I just want to make sure that everybody's safe and that I'm not causing any kind of harm. If you haven't noticed already, if you're looking at the back of the camera, you will see a reflection of the floor on the glass. to get rid of that, that's the last step, and that's to add the tinfoil underneath to block that reflection. It's easiest if you just make a crease in the tinfoil and then you can tear it. Okay, so another trick with this tape, it actually has black backing, the sticky side. So if you do need to tape on the glass, you're not putting a white or brighter back of the tape facing out of the hoop. This will kind of, again, minimize any kind of distraction that's sticking out that way. So make sure that it's black on the back. And you'll want to look at the reflection in the back of your camera and move this around to see where you need to place it to minimize that distraction. And then just kind of fold it over and mold it as you need to go around your lens. And we'll just tape it on the lens right underneath here. Then it gets completely rid of the glare. If you end up using a remote as a result of watching this video, we want to see what you're doing. Tag us at BYU Photo. We would love to see new angles, perspectives, and way that you're using it. And again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next video. We'll just call it. We'll call it. We're done.